Hey everyone! Tonight we're diving into the cold, damp, and surprisingly brutal life of an animal you've probably seen but never truly considered, the salamander. You might picture them as a shy, glistening little creature tucked under a wet log, maybe even something a bit magical out of a fairy tale. But trust me, the daily existence of a real salamander is a non-stop, high-stakes battle against the world. It's a life lived on the razor's edge of drying out, a life where every shadow could be a predator, and your own skin is both your greatest asset and your most profound weakness. So as we settle in, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy the stories we explore here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. It's always incredible to see who's joining us from all corners of the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe find a cool, quiet spot in your home, and let's slip into the damp undergrowth for tonight's journey together. And your journey doesn't begin with a first breath, or the warmth of a mother's touch. It begins in cold silence as a single, gelatinous orb. You're a thought, a possibility, suspended in a quivering mass of jelly attached to a sunken leaf. There's no nest, no den, no parent standing guard. Your mother, having fulfilled her biological duty, is long gone. She has left you and your hundreds of siblings clinging to life in a shimmering cluster that looks less like a nursery and more like a convenient buffet. Your shell. Not so much a shell as a thin, permeable film, the only thing separating your developing spark of life from a world that wants to eat you. You're a tiny living bead in a glob of tapioca pudding, and everything is a threat. A hungry caddisfly larva, no bigger than a grain of rice, sees your egg mass as a jackpot. A passing newt, one of your distant cousins, might glide by and gulp down a dozen of your siblings without a second thought. But the most patient predator is the one you can't see coming. A fine white fuzz begins to creep over the eggs at the edge of the cluster. It's a water mold, a fungus, and it's slowly, methodically, smothering your brothers and sisters, turning their translucent spheres opaque and lifeless. You can only float in your little sack of goo, completely helpless, as the danger inches closer. You haven't even developed eyes yet, but the race for survival has already begun. You haven't been born, and you're already just a patient waiting meal. But you don't just wait to be eaten. Some frantic, pre-programmed instinct takes over. You twitch, you spasm, you writhe inside your jelly prison until the membrane gives, and you tear your way out into the cold, murky water. You're free, but freedom is terrifying. The world is no longer a silent, contained orb. It's a chaotic soup of constant motion. You have a new body, a wriggling, desperate thing with a mouth, a propulsive tail, and two feathery, blood-red gills fluttering on the sides of your neck, pulling life from the water around you. There are no thoughts, no strategy. There are only two primal commands firing in your tiny brain: hide and eat. You are desperately, ravenously hungry. You lunge at anything that moves and is smaller than you. A water flea, a mosquito larva, a speck of life wiggling past. A successful snap, a tiny burst of nourishment. It's a victory that lasts a millisecond, because the world is also full of things bigger than you. A shadow detaches from a rotting twig. It's a dragonfly nymph, a creature from a horror film with a giant extendable jaw. You dart away, your finned tail beating frantically, and wedge yourself under a piece of dead leaf. You've survived, for now. But the most immediate threat isn't some alien monster. It's your family. The hundreds of siblings you just saw incubating beside you are now your direct competitors, and your most likely predators. The one that hatched an hour before you is already bigger, stronger, and just as hungry. The nursery has instantly become an all-you-can-eat buffet where you're also on the menu. The rule is simple and brutal. Eat, grow, and do it faster than everyone else, or you'll be the very next meal for the thing that used to be your brother. But even as you dodge your siblings in this frenzy of eat or be eaten, a greater, more impartial threat descends. The sun, an entity you've only ever known as a soft, muffled glow through the water's surface, becomes an oppressive weight. You feel it in the water. It's getting warmer. The cool, murky safety you've always known is slowly turning into a lukewarm bath. Day by day, your world shrinks. The shallow edges of the pond pull back, leaving behind cracked mud and the desiccated bodies of those who couldn't keep up. That deep, dark patch of water where you love to hide? It's not so deep anymore. The rotting log that served as a perfect ambush spot is now half exposed to the air, useless. There's nowhere to go. Every creature in the pond, the dragonfly nymphs, the water beetles, and your dozens of ravenous siblings, is being funneled into an increasingly crowded muddy bowl. The competition becomes suffocating. The water grows thick and cloudy, a foul-smelling soup choked with algae and struggling bodies. Your feathery gills, which once pulled life effortlessly from the cool water, now labour, straining to find enough oxygen in the stagnant liquid. You feel a new kind of panic, a deep cellular dread that has nothing to do with being hunted. It's the terror of your entire universe evaporating. And so a hidden timer set by an ancient biological clock begins to tick inside you. It's a race, a desperate internal scramble to change before your home boils down to nothing. Your body gets the terrifying message, get out of the water, because the water is about to betray you completely. You have to sprout lungs, absorb your gills, and get ready for a world of air and gravity, and you have to do it before you're left gasping in the sun-baked mud. The pond is no longer your cradle, it's your tomb, and the walls are closing in. And then the change begins. It's not a choice. It's a hostile takeover from within. Your body declares war on itself. A bizarre internal fever floods your system, and the panicked race to grow turns into something far more terrifying, a complete cellular meltdown. You have no choice but to find a spot in the thickest, most putrid mud at the very bottom of the puddle that was once your home, and surrender to it. You become a prisoner in your own skin. Movement becomes impossible. Your fins, your tail, the very muscles you use to dart away from danger, they all turn to jelly. You lie there, paralysed, a conscious mind trapped in a dissolving body. And those beautiful feathery gills that gave you life, they begin to feel like they're being strangled. They itch, they burn, and then they begin to shrink slowly, agonizingly, being absorbed back into your flesh. You're suffocating on the only thing you've ever known, and your body's only answer is to start building something new inside your chest, a pair of strange empty bags, lungs. You don't know how to use them. This isn't a gentle transformation, it's a biological horror show. Your skull softens and reshapes. Your tail fin withers away, leaving a thick, useless stump. Your skin, once a delicate membrane, thickens and toughens. It feels like you're being melted down and recast from the inside out by a creator who has left the room. All you can do is lie still and hope nothing finds you in this state of absolute helplessness. That dragonfly nymph with the monster jaw, it could drift by and pick you apart without a struggle. Your bigger, hungrier sibling. He could nudge you, find you unresponsive, and start his meal. You're completely, utterly at the world's mercy, not just vulnerable to your body, but vulnerable because of it. You can only wait and pray for the grotesque process to finish before you're discovered. The fever breaks. The internal screaming stops, and the grotesque process is over. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, your body is your own again, but it's a body you don't recognize. The paralysis recedes, replaced by a new, urgent command that has nothing to do with hiding or eating. Up! You have to go up. Your new legs, thin and shaky, find purchase in the slime. You drag your alien body through the mud, a clumsy, leaden weight. This is gravity. You've never truly felt it before, and it is a crushing physical bully. You break the surface and the world explodes. Your first breath of air is a shock, a dry, razored gasp that burns your new, pathetic lungs. It's not the gentle, life-giving flow of water, it's a violent punch. The air itself feels wrong. It's a thief, immediately starting to pull the moisture from your newly thickened skin, making you feel tight and sticky. Your senses are overwhelmed, flooded with information you cannot possibly process. The scent of the pond was a thick, familiar rot. This is a symphony of decay, of damp soil, of pine needles, and 1,000 other things you have no name for. It's too much. The ground beneath you is a nightmare of textures. You slither from the soft ooze of the pond's edge onto a dead leaf, and its crisp, dry surface feels like sandpaper. A small twig is a mountain. A pebble is a boulder. Everything is sharp and dry and hostile. You're an aquatic creature stranded in a desert, and the desert is a forest floor. You take a faltering step, then another, driven only by the instinct to find cover, to find dampness, to find dark. A blur of motion, a skittering sound that vibrates through your jaw and straight into your skull. You freeze. A shrew, a tiny frantic missile of fur and teeth, darts past, its nose twitching, sniffing the air. It doesn't see you, but in that split-second encounter your entire understanding of danger is rewritten. The slow, gliding predators of the pond are gone. Out here, death is fast. It is nervous. It is warm-blooded. You have escaped the closing walls of your aquatic nursery only to crawl onto the floor of a terrifying open-air asylum, and you do not know a single one of the rules. But you learn the first rule very, very quickly. It's not about the shrew or the things that scutter in the shadows. The first and most important rule of your new life is this. The air is trying to kill you. Not with teeth or claws, but by quietly, relentlessly stealing the water from your body. That feeling of the air on your skin. It's not a neutral sensation. It's theft. Every moment you spend in the open, you can feel your skin beginning to tighten, to grow tacky, like a coat of varnish drying in the sun. This is the cruel paradox of your existence. Your skin, this permeable, sensitive sheath, is your secondary lung. It pulls in the oxygen you so desperately need, a miraculous adaptation that lets you breathe without breathing. But it's also your greatest flaw. It's a sieve. It holds onto moisture with all the strength of a wet paper bag. Staying alive is now a constant, obsessive-compulsive act of moisture management. The sun, which was once a gentle presence filtered through water, is now a malevolent god hanging in the sky, baking the world and you along with it. A single, exposed patch of sunlight on the forest floor is no longer a warm spot. It's a death sentence. You feel an instinctual terror of it, a dread so deep it feels older than you are. So you don't run, you don't fight, you crawl. Your entire world, your entire purpose shrinks to a single desperate goal. Find damp. Your new weak legs drag you not toward food, not toward safety from predators, but toward a dark shape in the distance, a rotting log. You press your belly against its cool, spongy bark, and the relief is electric. You wedge your body into the dark, wet soil beneath it, and the feeling is so profound, so all-encompassing, it's the closest thing to joy you will ever know. You've learned the lesson. Out there is death. In here, under the log, in the damp and the dark, this is life. But even this sanctuary isn't a static paradise. You quickly learn that life under the log isn't about rest. It's about constant, frantic adjustment. You may have solved the wet versus dry problem for now, but you've just stumbled into an equally relentless prison, the tyranny of temperature. You don't have an internal furnace, you have no thermostat. Your body is nothing more than a slave to the ambient world, its temperature passively reflecting whatever is happening around you. As night falls, the cold doesn't just surround you, it invades you. It seeps through the damp soil up into your belly and turns your blood to slush. Your already slow metabolism grinds to a near-complete halt. Your muscles, which were never strong to begin with, now feel like they're made of cold clay. First, a twitch becomes an effort. Then, lifting your head is impossible. Soon, you are completely paralyzed, a living statue locked in the grip of the cold. A beetle could crawl over your eye and you couldn't blink. A centipede could brush against your leg and you couldn't flinch. You're fully conscious, but your body has abandoned you. Then, the opposite horror. The morning sun begins to cook the log above you. Your shelter becomes an oven. The warmth seeps down, and your internal engine doesn't just start, it redlines. Your heart thumps wildly. Your metabolism skyrockets, burning through your precious, hard-won energy for no reason at all. It's a frantic, wasteful panic, a biological fire alarm you can't turn off. And worse, the heat accelerates the air's theft of your moisture, doubling the danger. So your life becomes a slow, desperate dance of inches. You're a perpetual refugee. As the ground heats up, you must burrow deeper, pushing yourself into the cooler, darker earth. As the evening brings a chill, you must migrate back toward the surface to steal the last remnants of the day's warmth, lest you freeze solid in your burrow. You are never truly resting. You're constantly shuttling between microclimates, a prisoner on a tiny island, forever chasing that impossibly narrow, perfect sliver of just right, where you're not too hot to live and not too cold to move. And so this becomes your entire existence. The frantic chase for that perfect sliver of just right temperature isn't a journey to a destination, it's a sentence. Once you find it, that one specific pocket of soil that's not too hot, not too cold, not too wet and not too dry, you don't get to relax. You are simply ordered to stop. Completely. Your entire day is now defined by what you don't do. You don't move, you don't hunt, you don't explore, you're wedged into a dark, tight crevice of earth under a log and you just wait. It is a state of profound, mind-numbing boredom, a stillness so absolute that time itself seems to congeal. But this stillness isn't calm. It's a high-wire act of tension. Every sound from the world above is distorted and amplified through the damp wooden soil. A woodpecker drumming on your log is not a distant tapping. It's a violent seismic shock that vibrates through your entire skeleton. The faint scratching of a foraging mole nearby sounds like it's tunneling directly toward your face. You are playing the world's most boring, high-stakes waiting game. You lie there, a coiled spring of pure potential energy, unable to move a muscle, because any shift, any adjustment, could betray your location to a snake slithering into the darkness with you, or to the bird that might suddenly flip your log over just to see what's underneath. You are awake, you are alert, but you are a statue, a prisoner of daylight, waiting for your one and only signal for release. It comes not as a sight, but as a feeling. A slow, almost imperceptible cooling in the earth around you. A subtle shift in the air as humidity begins to rise. It's the permission you've been waiting for all day. The sun is gone. The great oppressive threat of the sky is past. The day's long, agonizing sentence is over, and your limbs are finally unlocked. Now, under the cover of darkness, the hunt can begin. And so you uncoil. Your escape from the day's prison isn't a triumphant burst into the night. It's a slow, methodical crawl. Your belly stays pressed to the cool, damp earth, your legs moving with a deliberate caution born from a lifetime of fear. Out here, in the twilight, your eyes are almost useless. They're good for one thing, detecting the sudden, terrifying lunge of something about to eat you. But for finding your own food, they're dark, cloudy windows onto a world you navigate by other means. You don't hunt by sight, you hunt by taste, not with your mouth, but with your face. You have two tiny, almost invisible grooves running from your nostrils to your upper lip. These are your nasolabial grooves, and they are the most sophisticated pieces of technology you will ever own. As you move, you press your snout to the ground, again and again in a rhythmic tapping motion. You're not kissing the earth, you're reading it. With each touch, you're pulling microscopic chemical cues up into a sensory organ in the roof of your mouth. You're tasting the ghost of everything that has passed this way. The bitter tang of rotting oak leaf, the mineral grit of the soil, and then something else. A faint greasy smear of information. A slug. It passed this way minutes ago, leaving behind an invisible trail of slime that, to you, screams like a billboard. The hunt is on. You're no longer just hiding. You're following a story written in molecules, a slow, silent predator tracking a sentence made of scent. But following that story is not a chase. It's an act of excruciating thrift. You are a master of energy conservation, and this slow, nightly hunt is a terrifyingly precise accounting equation where every single movement is a calculated expenditure from a budget that is perilously close to zero. The crawl from under your log? That costs something. Each tap of your snout to the ground, a tiny withdrawal from the bank. You move with an economy that borders on paralysis, because a single wasted motion could tip you into an energy deficit from which you might never recover. The scent trail gets stronger. Ahead, in the damp leaf litter, an earthworm is blindly churning through the soil. It's the perfect meal, slow, unaware, and packed with enough calories to fuel your existence for days. You stop. The time for slow movement is over. Now, you must be a statue, You watch it, not with your eyes, but by sensing its slow, rhythmic vibrations in the dirt. You wait, and you calculate. Is it close enough? Is the angle right? You have only one weapon for this moment, a tongue you can fire like a sticky biological missile. But launching it requires a massive, violent burst of energy. It is your one and only shot. If you miss, the worm is gone. But you don't just lose the meal, you lose the colossal amount of energy you invested in the attack. It's a net loss so significant it borders on a death sentence. It's the energy you would have used to survive an unexpected cold snap, the fuel you needed to burrow an inch deeper to escape the heat, the power required to dodge the snake that might be sliding through the shadows right now. You wait for the perfect moment. It comes. You fire. Your tongue explodes from your mouth and snags on a dry piece of bark you hadn't accounted for. The worm, startled by the vibration, vanishes into the soil, and you're left with a profound, sinking emptiness. It's not disappointment, it's a physical reality. The fuel tank is empty. You've just spent your entire weekly paycheck on a lottery ticket that blew away in the wind, and now you don't have enough left for the bus ride home. The hunt isn't over because you missed. It's over because you can no longer afford to try again. That sinking emptiness is more than just hunger. It's a cold, spreading alarm. The failed hunt has left you weak, exposed, and stranded in the open. The 10 inches back to the safety of your log might as well be 10 miles. And now you feel the crushing reality of your own body, because you can't run. You don't have that option. Your body doesn't flee. It lurches. It's a clumsy, sprawling, side-to-side wobble that's painfully inefficient. Your legs, set at right angles to your body, provide a low centre of gravity for slinking through tight spaces, but out here, they're a liability. Each step is a separate, exhausting effort, your belly scraping against the grit of the forest floor, your movement a desperate, waddling scramble. You are a masterpiece of slow-motion stealth, but a complete joke when it comes to speed. You're built for ambush and for hiding, not for escape. A vibration shivers through the dirt, different from the worm, deeper. You freeze. A new scent touches the air, dry and scaly. Your body locks down before your brain can even process the fear. This is your primary defense, your only real move in the face of a true threat. You don't run, you don't fight. You cease to exist. You become a mottled lump of wet leaf and shadow. Your pattern of browns and blacks, once just skin, is now your only prayer. A shape detaches itself from the darkness. A garter snake, its head low, its tongue flicking, tasting the story you just wrote on the ground. The scent of your failure, the trail of the worm that got away. It slides past, its black eye a cold, unblinking bead. It's so close you could be consumed in a single fluid motion. Every cell in your body is screaming, but externally you are a statue. A slight tremor, a twitch, a single panicked movement would turn you from scenery into a meal. The snake's head pauses, inches from your own. It tastes the air one last time. It smells slug. It smells worm. It smells damp earth. It does not smell you. You're so still, so utterly a part of the background that you have become invisible. The moment stretches into an eternity, and then the snake moves on. A silent river of hunger flowing into the night. You didn't outrun it. You didn't outsmart it. You were simply not there. The relief that washes over you isn't triumph. It's the hollow confirmation of a terrifying truth. Your body is a prison of slowness. And your only hope for survival is to be so good at hiding that the world itself forgets you exist. But that reprieve is just a pause, not a pardon. You survived the snake by becoming invisible, but you are still weak, still exposed, and your log is an entire lifetime away. You begin the agonizing, slow-motion crawl back home, your belly scraping the dirt, every inch of victory paid for with fuel you no longer have. The night air, once a symbol of freedom, now feels heavy with new threats. You don't hear this one coming. It's not a slow, slithering dread. It's a vibrating blur, a frantic sniffing, a high-frequency energy that fills the space around you. Before you can even think to freeze, it's on you, the shrew. A tiny, warm-blooded hurricane of appetite, and its needle-sharp teeth clamp down on the back half of your body. Pain explodes through your system. But beneath the pain, a deeper, more ancient circuit fires. This is a threat you cannot hide from. This is a threat you cannot outrun. The command isn't freeze. The command isn't flee. The command is break. You don't think. Your body acts. A violent convulsive spasm originates from deep within your core. It's a muscular contraction so powerful, so absolute, that it snaps your own spine along a pre-scored fracture plane. There is a sickening internal pop, a tearing of muscle, a severing of connection. You have in a single brutal act ripped your own tail from your body. The shrew is left with a prize, but the prize is still alive. Your tail, now an independent entity, writhes and thrashes on the forest floor, a grotesque twitching decoy. It flips and flops with a violence you yourself could never muster. A zombie appendage that holds the shrew's complete, murderous attention. While the predator is busy killing your ghost, you lurch forward. You're a truncated thing now, a clumsy scramble of legs and torso ending in a cold, wet stump. Pain is a distant roar. The only reality is the dark space under your log. You tumble in, collapsing into the damp, cool earth. You're safe. But the cost is staggering. You can feel the open, bleeding wound where a huge portion of your body used to be. That wasn't just a tail. That was your emergency fuel tank, your savings account, your pantry of stored fat for the lean times, and you just spent it all on a few seconds of distraction. You survived the moment, but you've just mortgaged your entire future to do it, and you're left crippled, bankrupt, and praying you have enough left to see another night. You lie there, a broken thing in the cool, damp earth. The space where your tail used to be is now a blunt, open wound. It's not just a searing pain, it's a profound sense of wrongness and incompleteness that echoes through your entire body. Every instinct you have is screaming that you're half of what you were. You're unbalanced, you're exposed, and you're starving. The last of your energy was spent on that frantic, desperate act of self-mutilation. But as you lie in the dirt waiting for the end, something else begins. It's not a decision you make. It's an ancient command written into your very cells. It is the faintest flicker of a biological miracle. Over the raw stump, a thin film of skin begins to creep, sealing the wound not for healing, but for rebuilding. Your body knows it cannot survive this way. It has to start over. This isn't magic. It's a slow, agonizingly expensive process. Regeneration is a biological luxury you absolutely cannot afford right now. Every bit of protein, every calorie you don't have, must be redirected to this one monumental task. You can't hunt. You can barely move. Your entire existence is now diverted to this internal construction project. The world outside, with its centipedes and slugs, must wait. Your body is now eating itself to remake itself. Days turn into a week. The wound is no longer raw, but is now covered by a strange smooth cap of tissue. A bud. It's a lump of unformed flesh, a chaotic cluster of stem cells dividing and multiplying with no clear purpose. It feels alien. For weeks, you are more vulnerable than you have ever been. That fat reserve that would have gotten you through a dry spell, gone. That counterbalance for climbing over a root, gone. You survive on sheer metabolic thrift, your life hanging by the single thread of this slow, uncertain promise of regrowth. Slowly, agonizingly, the bud begins to lengthen. It's not a tail yet. It's a pale, pathetic stump, a featureless cone of new meat. But inside, a scaffold of cartilage is painstakingly being laid down. Nerves are tentatively stretching into the new tissue. Blood vessels are inching their way forward. It's the biological equivalent of rebuilding a skyscraper one rivet at a time, in the dark during a famine. It will take months, and when it's finally done, the new tail will never be quite right. It will be shorter, maybe stiffer, the pattern on its skin a slightly mismatched copy of the original. It's a scar you will carry forever, but it is a tail. It is a second chance. You have performed a feat that few animals in the world could even dream of, pulling a new future for yourself out of nothing but time, darkness, and a desperate cellular will to simply keep going. But this path of breaking and rebuilding, of hiding and hoping, isn't the only one. For some of your kind, the grotesque trauma of metamorphosis leads not to a life of blending in, but to a life of screaming defiance. You don't emerge as a mottled shadow. You emerge as a fire, a living flame crawling on the forest floor. Your skin, once a tapestry of mud and leaf, is now a shocking, impossible orange, a shade that belongs to sunsets and poison, not to a creature of the damp earth. You're no longer trying to be invisible. You're the most visible thing for miles. You're a paradox, a tiny, slow-moving creature that has thrown camouflage to the wind and is now daring the world to look at it. Every bird in the canopy sees you. Every shrew in the undergrowth marks your progress. You have made yourself the easiest target imaginable. And that's the point, because your skin, your beautiful, terrible skin, is no longer just a sieve for air and water. It is a chemical weapon. It is saturated with some of the most potent neurotoxins in the animal kingdom. When threatened, you don't just freeze. You arch your back, and from the glands along your spine, a milky, bitter fluid oozes to the surface. It is a promise of a miserable, convulsive death. A young, curious bird, one that has not yet learned the rules of colour, lands beside you. It sees an easy meal, a squirming bit of protein. It pecks once. The toxins hit its tongue and its nervous system almost instantly. It recoils, shuddering, stumbling backwards. Its beak hangs open as it desperately tries to scrape the taste, the poison, from its mouth. It will not die, not this time, but it will remember. It will see your colour a month from now, a year from now, and know that orange means agony. You don't fight. You don't flee. You're a threat made of stillness, a lesson waiting to be taught. You're not a warrior. You're a walking testament to the idea that sometimes the most effective way to survive is to be so utterly horrifically costly to kill that nothing dares to even try. That bright orange warning might buy you respect from a curious bird, and the memory of your poison might save you from a hungry shrew. But what happens when the next creature you cross paths with isn't a predator? What happens when, in the deep, damp dark, under a rotting log, you smell something maddeningly familiar? It's not prey. It's not a threat. It's you, another salamander. Don't imagine a flicker of recognition, a moment of kinship. Your brain doesn't have a file for friend. The only thing you feel is a cold, rising tension, an intruder alert. Because this forest floor isn't a community, it's a collection of fiercely guarded, single-occupancy survival pods. That perfect damp space under your rock, that 5-star crevice you spent a week finding, the one that's just cool enough and just moist enough. It's the only thing keeping you alive, and this other salamander, this interloper, is now a direct threat to that. It's not just about space. Every beetle this stranger eats is one less you might find. Every worm is a stolen meal from your already empty belly. This isn't a neighbour. This is your competition, a direct rival for the handful of calories scattered across this patch of dirt. So when you meet, there's no greeting. There is a standoff. A slow, silent dance of aggression where you might arch your back or tap your snout to the ground, laying down your own chemical signature, screaming in scent, "This is mine." The other salamander does the same. It's a cold war fought in millimeters, a silent argument over who has the right to this specific patch of wet earth. There's no dramatic battle. One of you, likely the smaller or newer arrival, eventually concedes, a slow retreat, a backing away into the less desirable territory on the fringes, where it's a little too dry or a little too exposed. The loser isn't just embarrassed. They are actively pushed closer to death. You seek out others for one frantic, desperate purpose, to mate, and then retreat back into your solitary world. Seeing another of your kind isn't a comfort. It's an alarm bell, a reminder that in this quiet, damp life you have no allies. You only have rivals. But once a year, that cold, silent calculation of survival, that fierce, solitary ownership of your patch of damp earth, is completely overridden. It starts with the rain. Not just any rain, but the first warm, heavy downpour of early spring. It soaks the ground, fills the air with the smell of thawed soil, and flips a switch deep inside your brain that is ancient, absolute, and utterly non-negotiable. It's a command that has no words, only a direction, and it says, move. You don't choose to leave the perfect safety of your log. You are pulled from it, dragged by an invisible tide of instinct. The life you have perfected, a life of stillness, of hiding, of being forgotten by the world, is thrown away in an instant. You crawl out from your sanctuary into the teeming rain-soaked night, and you join a silent, solemn procession. Hundreds of others, just like you, emerging from their own solitary prisons, all pulled in the same direction, all answering the same mute call. You don't acknowledge them. They are not allies. They are just other bodies moving in the same current. The journey is a marathon across a landscape of sheer terror. You leave the familiar clutter of the forest floor and find yourself at the edge of a field. The canopy is gone. The sky is a vast, terrifying void. Every gust of wind feels like the breath of a predator. You're a slow, dark speck on an enormous open canvas, and you feel the gaze of every owl, every raccoon from 100 yards away. You keep going. Then you reach it. A river of black stone, unnaturally flat and wide, that smells of poison and hot metal. A road. It holds a strange warmth, but it's a dead warmth. You crawl onto its gritty surface, and your body screams that this is wrong. A distant vibration shivers through the asphalt, growing into a deep guttural roar. A pair of blinding suns rushes toward you out of the darkness. You freeze. It is the only thing you know how to do. The monstrous roar and a hurricane of wind pass over you, and you're somehow still there. Your skin tacky with grime, your heart a frantic hammer in your chest. You keep going. A pilgrim on a blind pilgrimage, driven toward a place you have never been, but that your blood remembers as home. And then you smell it. Not with your snout, but with your entire body. A deep, wet, familiar scent on the air that silences every other signal. It's the smell of pond water, of algae, of cold, still decay. This is the place. This is home. You slip over the edge of a bank, your belly sliding from mud into the shocking total embrace of the water. It's a relief so profound it's like a memory of birth. The constant nagging pull of dryness is gone. For the first time in an entire year, your skin can just be. But this is not the stagnant, suffocating puddle of your youth. The water is cold, clear, and swarming. It is a chaotic underwater ballroom filled with desperate, silent dancers. Males, sleek and swollen with purpose, dart through the water around you. One approaches. He doesn't offer a greeting. He bumps you, nudges you with his snout, and begins to circle you in a strange, hypnotic ballet. He rubs his chin against your skin, releasing his own chemical signature, a frantic, scented advertisement of his genetic fitness. You're not being wooed. You're being assessed. He is judging your size, your stillness. After a tense, circling waltz, he makes his decision. He moves ahead of you, his tail waving back and forth, and then he does something utterly bizarre. He stoops, presses his vent to a submerged leaf, and deposits a tiny gelatinous pyramid on its surface, a spermatophore, a packet of his entire genetic future left on the floor of the pond. His job is done. He vanishes back into the chaos. And now, the entire weight of this journey, the road, the owls, the crushing exhaustion, all comes down to this one, impossibly delicate moment. It's all on you. You must now maneuver your body with the precision of a surgeon and guide your cloaca directly over that tiny shimmering cone. A clumsy jostle from another passing male could knock you off course. A slight current could make you miss by a millimetre. A moment's hesitation, and another female might steal the prize. If you fail, the entire effort was for nothing. You have one chance to perfectly receive this silent, abandoned gift. You line yourself up, you lower your body, and you pray that you got it right. You got it right. The genetic legacy is secured, but there is no triumph. The frantic chemical pull that dragged you across roads and fields is simply gone. The water, which felt like a sacred homecoming just hours ago, now feels like any other water, cold and empty. The other salamanders, once rivals in a chaotic dance, are now just shadows dispersing back into the night. The party is over. You drag your exhausted body out of the pond, back into the world where the air is a thief. Gravity returns, a crushing weight on your depleted frame. But you have one final task. You find a submerged leaf, and with the last of your strength, you deposit your own cluster of gelatinous eggs. You're now leaving behind hundreds of versions of the life you began, tiny orbs of possibility in a dangerous world. You feel no pride, no maternal bond. You feel nothing but a staggering hollow emptiness and a desperate need to leave. You will never see them again. The weeks that follow are a blur of desperate consumption. The migration and the act of creating life have left you a ghost, a threadbare version of yourself. Your fat reserves, stored so carefully in your tail, are completely gone. You're living on the edge of a razor, and so you hunt with a new frantic greed. It's no longer about surviving the night. It's about repaying an enormous debt. Every slug, every worm, every beetle is a frantic deposit into your bankrupt energy account. The sun warms the world. Prey is abundant. Summer is a long, slow banquet, and a new feeling begins to replace the hunger. A growing sense of fullness, of substance. Your tail, once a thin whip, begins to swell and thicken. It becomes your visible savings account, a plump cushion of fat against the future. But even as you feast, a new clock is ticking. The days grow shorter, the angle of the sun changes, the nights arrive with a new sharp bite in the air. One morning, the leaves are laced with a delicate white filigree of frost. It's a death warrant. Your comfortable crevice under the log is no longer safe. The cold is seeping deeper. The superficial damp you rely on will soon become a solid, crystalline tomb. You must go down. You must find a place deep enough to escape the reach of the freezing air. You abandon your home and begin a slow, desperate search, pushing into piles of leaf litter, probing the earth around tree roots, exploring the abandoned tunnels of mice and moles. The ground is getting harder. The frost is coming. It's a race, not against a predator you can see, but against a descending ceiling of absolute cold that will freeze the very water in your cells. You push deeper into the cold, dark earth, praying you can get low enough before the world above you turns to stone. You've made it. Deep in the earth, far below the crystalline reach of the frost, you've found a refuge. The frantic race against the cold is over. Here, in the damp, silent dark, your body has slowed to a cold, drowsy hum. Your heart beats with a pace that's barely a flicker. This is not sleep. It is a slow, patient waiting, a state of suspended animation where you are shielded from the brutal, frozen world above. You have outsmarted winter. You should be safe. But then, a strange feeling. It starts as a faint itch on your flank, a spot you can't quite reach. It's a minor irritation at first. You dismiss it, but it doesn't go away. It spreads, and it's not an itch of dryness. This feels different. Your skin, the miraculous, life-giving membrane that breathes for you, that drinks for you, begins to feel wrong. It feels thick, a little rough, almost dusty, even here in the life-giving dampness of your burrow. This is a threat you have no instinct for. It isn't a warm-blooded missile of fur and teeth. It isn't a cold-eyed snake. This enemy is already inside your castle walls. It's an invisible fungus, a microscopic plague you likely picked up in the communal waters of the breeding pond. And it is a specialist. It attacks the one thing that defines you, your skin. The fungus multiplies, creating a thickening, deadened layer across your body. The organ you use to breathe the damp air is slowly being suffocated under a blanket of its own corrupted cells. You're in a cool, oxygen-rich burrow, but you feel like you can't get enough air. That simple, miraculous exchange of gas through your skin is failing. Then comes the thirst, a profound, deep dehydration that makes no sense. You're surrounded by moisture, pressed into wet soil, but your skin can no longer absorb it. The life-giving water is right there, but you are dying as if you were on sun-baked stone. Your body panics. It's a slow, cold panic. The electrolyte balance that keeps your tiny heart beating goes haywire. Your muscles begin to twitch with feeble, uncontrollable spasms. You don't have the strength to burrow deeper, to flee, to do anything but lie there as your own greatest biological asset seals your tomb. You survived the predators. You survived the droughts. You survived the freezing cold. But you can't survive this, because the enemy is your own skin, turned against you by a plague you can't even see. But to be slowly poisoned by your own skin isn't the only way your story ends. Sometimes the end isn't a silent, creeping plague. Sometimes it's a sudden, violent apocalypse that arrives with a roar. Let's say you survived it all. You made it through the winter, your skin clear, your body whole. You're back in your kingdom, that perfect, cool patch of earth under your ancestral log. The quiet rhythm has returned. You spend your days in the damp dark, your nights in the slow, methodical hunt. This is your world. You know its every scent, its every shadow. And then, one afternoon, the earth begins to hum. It's not the familiar tremor of a deer's hoof or the distant drumming of a woodpecker. It's a deep, gut-churning vibration that doesn't stop. It grows, rattling your bones, shaking the very soil you're pressed against. The hum becomes a roar, a noise so loud, so alien, that it feels like the sky is being torn in half. Your sanctuary, your log, shudders violently. There's a deafening crack of splintering wood, a sound of roots tearing from the earth, and then your entire world is ripped away. The log vanishes into the sky. Blinding, agonizing light floods your refuge. You are exposed, not to a bird, not to a snake, to the open, pitiless sun. You lie paralyzed on the bare, naked earth as a monstrous yellow beast with churning jaws of steel grinds past, chewing up the forest and spitting out a hellscape of raw dirt and splinters. The deep, life-giving layer of leaf litter is gone. The network of roots, the other logs, the shadows, all of it, erased. The air, once humid and fragrant with decay, is now thick with dust and the hot, oily stench of the machine. You scramble, a tiny, desperate speck in a vast churned desert that was, just moments ago, your home. There is nowhere to hide. The ground is turning to hot concrete under the sun, and your skin, your precious, vulnerable skin, is screaming as the moisture is stolen from it. You survived predators, you survived winter, you survived disease. But you can't survive this, because a predator just wants a meal. This doesn't even know you exist. It has, in a single, careless afternoon, unwritten your entire world and left you to bake in the ruins. But somehow you survive that apocalypse. You find a pocket of reprieve in the churned-up earth, a shallow depression filled by the next rainfall. Water. It feels like salvation. You slip into the grimy puddle, a moment of profound, desperate relief as your screaming skin finally gets the moisture it needs. The constant threat of drying into a lifeless husk recedes. For a moment, you can almost believe you've made it. But the water feels wrong. It's not just muddy. It carries a strange metallic tang, a sharpness that feels more like a sting than a comfort. This isn't the clean, life-giving rain you remember. The sky itself is now sick, and its tears are poison. This is acid rain, an invisible blight that has altered the very chemistry of your world. The water you're soaking in, the soil you press your belly against, it's all been soured, turned into a weak, corrosive bath. And your skin, your greatest asset, your lung, your drinking straw, it cannot tell the difference. It drinks the tainted water just as greedily as it would a pure mountain spring. You can feel the slow chemical burn seeping into you. It's not a searing heat, but a deep cellular violation. The delicate balance that keeps you alive is being dismantled. Your skin, which is supposed to absorb salts from the water, is now uncontrollably leaking them out into the acidic soup. You are surrounded by water, yet you are dying of a strange internal thirst. You are a living barometer for the health of the planet, and the needle is deep in the red. Your permeable body is a sponge for every toxin, every pollutant, every chemical sin humans have leached into the ecosystem. You absorb it all. You can't run from it. You can't hide from it. The very thing you need to survive, the dampness of the earth, has become your executioner. You survive the monsters in the pond, the shrews in the dark, the freezing of the world, and the violence of the machine, only to be undone by an enemy you can't see, feel, or fight. You're simply being dissolved slowly and quietly by a world that has become fundamentally hostile to life itself. But you don't dissolve. Let's say, against all logic, that you somehow survive the poisoned water. That stubborn ancient engine inside you keeps sputtering along, and the rain that was killing you is also the same rain that triggers the old, unbreakable command: move. The instinct is a madness. It overrides everything. The memory of the yellow beast, the desolation of your ruined home, the weakness in your limbs. It pulls you from your toxic puddle, and sends you crawling across a dead landscape. This isn't the familiar damp forest of last year's journey. This is a battlefield after the war, a wasteland of churned dirt and splintered wood. The familiar scent map of the forest floor is gone, replaced by the sterile smell of raw earth and a sky that feels too big, too empty. You crawl for what feels like an eternity, and then you reach it, the border of a different world, a vast, flat, black desert that cuts through the land. The road. Its surface is a nightmare of grit and strange dead warmth. There are no roots to hide under, no leaves to press against. There is only a horrifying, unnatural smoothness. You push forward, a tiny, dark speck on a black ocean, driven by the memory of a pond your blood knows is on the other side. That's when you feel it, a vibration. It starts not as a sound, but as a deep, alien tremor in the asphalt that travels up through your belly and into your skull. It's not the light footfall of a fox or the rustle of a shrew. It's a steady, growing hum that makes the world feel wrong. Then, 2 suns appear on the horizon, brighter and more terrible than anything you've ever known. They don't rise, they rush. Your body screams its one ancient defense, the same defense that saved you from the snake. Freeze. You lock every muscle, every joint. You become a stone. But this is not the forest. This is not a predator you can fool with stillness. The 2 suns swell, merging into a single blinding wall of light that erases the world. You are pinned, trapped, an actor on a stage under a malevolent spotlight, unable to move, unable to think. The vibration becomes a physical roar that shakes your very cells. It is the sound of a mountain moving at impossible speed, and you are just a speck of dust in its path, paralyzed by an instinct that has just become your death sentence. In the frozen final fraction of a second before the world ends, time does something strange. It stretches and collapses. The roaring sound of the oncoming machine, the blinding wall of light, it all dissolves, not into darkness, but into a deep, murky memory from the very beginning of your life. Before the log, before the legs, before the agony of lungs, you are back in the water, you're back in the nursery. The water fleas and mosquito larvae you've been snatching from the water are nothing. They are appetizers. They are dust. The hunger inside you is a hollow, aching void that these tiny motes of life cannot even begin to fill. It is a biological equation, and you are on the losing side. There is not enough food in this shrinking, crowded puddle for everyone to make it out alive, and as you hang in the cloudy water, you begin to look at your siblings differently. You don't see brothers and sisters, you see competition, and then you see a solution. You're no longer just looking at another wriggling larva. You're looking at a tail fin, thick with muscle. You're looking at a body, a substantial packet of protein and fat. You're looking at a meal. It doesn't happen with a raw or a conscious decision. It happens when a slightly smaller, slightly weaker sibling darts past, and instead of seeing a rival, your brain simply registers prey. You lunge. It's the same desperate, hungry snap you've made 1,000 times, but this time it connects with something that looks just like you. There's a brief, frantic struggle, a silent, thrashing horror movie in the murky water, but you are bigger, you are stronger, and you are hungrier. You don't just win, you consume. The act is brutal, efficient, and profoundly nourishing. The gnawing emptiness inside you is filled, for the first time, with something substantial. You have now crossed a line from which there is no return. You are a cannibal. The act makes you bigger, faster, and better equipped to do it again. The pond is no longer just a dangerous nursery. It has become your personal hunting ground, and your family is the prey. This is what it took to get the resources to grow, to change, to crawl out of the water in the first place. The life that is now about to be extinguished on the asphalt was bought and paid for with the lives of your own kind in the cold, silent violence of your first home. And just like that, the memory of the pond is gone, blasted away by the roaring, blinding reality you left behind. You're back on the asphalt, a frozen statue in a hell of light and sound. But in this final, stretched-out microsecond, your brain doesn't show you pictures. Your life wasn't lived in images. You're not a creature of sight. Your world is a library of tastes, a history written in scent, and your entire existence is now flashing before your nose. You press your snout to the ground for the last time, and through the alien, horrifying taste of hot tar and grit, the ghosts of your whole life rush up to meet you. There it is. The clean, wet stone taste of the vernal pool, the smell of your own beginning, the greasy, exhilarating trail of an earthworm, the flavour of a successful hunt, the dry, terrifying musk of the snake, a scent that still makes your heart want to stop, the sharp, acrid warning of your own poison, the bitter tang of defiance, even the cold, subtle signature of your rival under the log, the taste of another's claim on your world. It's all there. A complex chemical map of survival, of fear, of hunger, and of home. A story told in molecules. But this new smell, this wave of hot rubber, burnt fuel, and sterile metal that is now washing over everything, it has no place on that map. It isn't the scent of a predator or prey or poison. It is the scent of erasure. It is a full stop. The last thing you will ever taste is the flavour of a world you were never meant to understand. And that is the taste of the end, a story written in molecules erased by a machine. Except it isn't. In that final, stretched-out moment, just as the roaring wall of light and metal is about to unmake you, the world offers a different kind of violence. A single, fat, cold drop of water strikes the hot asphalt beside you with a hiss, then another, and another. In a heartbeat, the air is not just wet. It is a solid, roaring curtain of water. This isn't the gentle, life-giving spring rain that called you from your slumber. This is a cataclysm, a deafening deluge that hammers the road, the trees, the entire world with a sound so loud it swallows the roar of the engine. The twin suns of the headlights blur into hazy smeared halos. A blast of wind and a tidal wave of spray washes over you as the machine thunders past, its tyres leaving deep rivers in the instantly flooded asphalt. The car is gone, you're still here, but the reprieve lasts for less than a second. The road, your flat black execution ground, has become the bed of a raging river. The water isn't seeping, it's sheeting, a fast cold current that rips you from your frozen posture. Your tiny legs find no purchase. You're lifted, you're tumbling, all control is gone. You're no longer a creature crawling across the land. You're an object, a piece of helpless debris caught in a flash flood. The current sweeps you off the road and into a churning, chaotic slurry of what used to be the forest floor. You're tossed through a nightmare of mud, splintered twigs that jab and scrape, and rotting leaves that blind you. The sense of home, of your path, of the vernal pool are obliterated, washed away in a torrent of undifferentiated sludge. You have been saved from a quick, definitive death, only to be thrown into a slow, chaotic one, ripped from your territory and cast into a violent, churning unknown from which you may never find your way back. The violent, watery chaos ends as abruptly as it began. You're dumped, unceremoniously, into a heavy, sodden heap of leaves and earth. You don't know where you are. Up is a vague sense of less pressure, but the world is a cold, black, suffocating weight. Pinned by debris, caked in mud, you instinctively try to do what any creature would do after a near-death ordeal. You try to take a deep, calming breath. But nothing happens. There is no gasp, no frantic intake of air, no satisfying expansion of your chest, because you haven't got any lungs to fill. That comfortable idea you had, that your skin was just a helpful backup, a secondary breathing apparatus, that was a comforting lie, a misunderstanding from a life with an internal furnace and protected organs. For you, a lungless salamander of the plethodontid family, your skin is everything. It's not your secondary lung, it is your only lung. A fragile living membrane of an organ turned inside out and worn on the surface of your body. Your entire life is not a battle against dehydration. It is a slow motion, moment-to-moment battle against suffocation. Every second is lived with the low-grade, constant panic of holding your breath just a little too long. That all-consuming need for dampness wasn't just about staying moist. It was about keeping your only lung from drying out and closing for business. A patch of dry, sun-warmed earth isn't a hot spot. It's a vacuum, a sealing off of your life source. And now, as you lie in the muck, you understand a new kind of horror. The flood that saved you has also entombed you. The thick, gritty mud isn't a comforting wet blanket. It's a suffocating one. It clogs the delicate surface of your skin, blocking the miraculous, microscopic exchange of gases. You're drowning in moisture. You're smothered by the very thing you need to live. The world didn't crush you on the road. It just found a slower, more intimate way to stop you from breathing. But that slow, intimate suffocation is not an end. It's a trigger. A blind, panicked writhing begins in the core of your being. You don't know which way is up, but you thrash against the cold, gritty weight of the mud with the last dregs of your strength. You push, you twist, a worm in a tomb of your own making, until finally a patch of your back breaks free into a pocket of air. The relief isn't a gasp. It's a cool, seeping permission to exist. The mud sloughs off, and your skin, your only lung, can finally breathe the damp darkness again. You've survived, but you are hollowed out, an empty vessel stranded in a hostile foreign landscape. The hunger that follows is no longer a simple need. It is a screaming, cavernous void. After the flood, the chase, the near suffocation, your body's deficit is catastrophic. You hunt not with stealth, but with a reckless desperation. And this time, you're lucky. A huge, glistening earthworm, fat from the rain, is writhing on the surface. You don't hesitate. You don't calculate. Your tongue fires, a perfect sticky strike, and you pull the meal into your mouth. You'd think this would be a moment of triumph, relief, the prize you've been fighting for. But for you, it's the beginning of a different kind of horror. The worm, too large to be immediately broken down, doesn't bring warmth or satisfaction. It lands in your stomach like a cold, heavy stone. You've just swallowed a lead weight, and now you have to carry it. This is digestion, and for you, it is not a background process. It is a week-long ordeal. Bloated, sluggish, and distended, you become a prisoner of your own meal. Your already slow movements become impossibly clumsy. Every shift of your body is a nauseating negotiation with the unmoving lump of protein inside you. You're no longer a sleek shadow on the forest floor. You're a slow, overstuffed sausage with legs, an obvious easy target for any predator that happens to be passing by. The very meal that saved you from starvation has now painted a bullseye on your back, and for the next 7 days, all you can do is hide and hope that nothing finds you in this helpless, gluttonous paralysis. That week of gluttonous paralysis eventually fades. The cold, heavy stone in your stomach is slowly, meticulously broken down, its energy seeping into your depleted cells. The bloating recedes, your skin fits again. For the first time since the flood, you feel something almost like strength return to your limbs. You are whole. You are restocked. But as the memory of the meal fades, the deep, gnawing hunger returns, and you are faced with a new, much quieter kind of horror. Because that giant worm wasn't a meal, it was a lottery win, and you can't win the lottery every week. Now you return to the default state of your existence, waiting. You are a master of this art, a creature built for profound metabolic patience. You find a damp, dark place, and you simply stop. But this patience is a double-edged sword. It allows you to survive for weeks on almost nothing, your internal fire burning so low it's barely a pilot light. But when the weeks stretch on, and no slug or beetle happens to wander into your tiny, motionless world, your body begins to make a terrible choice. It starts to eat itself. There is no conscious decision. It is a slow, orderly liquidation of assets. First, it drains the small fat reserve you've painstakingly rebuilt in your tail. Then, when that's gone, it turns to your muscles, breaking them down molecule by molecule for fuel. You lie there, perfectly still, feeling yourself get imperceptibly weaker, hollower, as you slowly cannibalize your own body to pay the merciless tax of existence. The stillness, once a hunting strategy, becomes an enforced prison of weakness. You are gambling, betting the last of your own tissue that something edible will stumble by before you've consumed too much of yourself to even move your jaw. This isn't a hunt. It is a slow, silent fade, and all you can do is lie motionless and hope that the world provides, before you simply, quietly, disappear. And then, as you're on the very edge of disappearing, the world provides, not with a bang, but with a whisper of scent molecules. It cuts through the slow, silent fade of your self-consumption. A beetle, small and black and armoured in chitin, is methodically making its way across your patch of dirt. It is a walking calorie, a tiny six-legged feast, and it is moving into range. The hunger inside you, which had quieted to a dull ache, reawakens as a sharp, piercing need. But it is drowned out by a colder, more immediate feeling, terror, because you can't just grab it. Your only weapon is a biological cannon, an apparatus of such explosive power and catastrophic cost that a miss is not an option. You remember what it feels like to fire and fail, to spend your life savings on a lottery ticket and come up empty. But that was when you were strong. Now, you've spent weeks cannibalizing your own body just to stay alive. You don't have savings. You're betting with the last few molecules of your own muscle tissue. This is the terrible genius of your design. Your tongue isn't pushed out by muscle, it's shot. Deep in your throat, a complex scaffold of cartilage and coiled muscle has spent the last few moments storing up elastic energy, compressing like a spring-loaded spear. Your entire body is now a loaded crossbow, aimed at a target the size of a pumpkin seed. The force of the launch will be immense, the acceleration faster than a fighter jet. But to fire it is to gamble everything. A successful hit might refuel you, a miss, a slight miscalculation in distance, a sudden gust of wind will leave you with a completely drained battery and nothing to show for it. It will be the last mistake you ever make. The beetle stops, its antenna twitching. It is now or never. The world narrows to that single dark spot. You don't think, you act. Your body uncoils in a single convulsive blast. For a split second, a pale, sticky missile longer than your own head is suspended in the air. The shot is perfect. The wet, sticky thwack of the impact is the most beautiful sound you have ever heard. You pull the beetle into your mouth, a crunch of chitin, a burst of nourishment, but you feel no victory, only a profound, shuddering exhaustion. The cannon has been fired. The energy is spent. You have won this bet, but you are left trembling, weak, and utterly spent, praying that this tiny meal will be enough to pay back the impossible price you just paid to get it. That tiny, hard-won beetle was not a feast. It was a single drop of fuel in a cavernously empty tank. The shuddering exhaustion from firing your tongue, that catastrophic expenditure of your own substance, does not fade. It settles deep in your tissues, a bone-deep weakness that the meagre meal barely touches. The hunger, for a moment silenced by the crunch of chitin, returns not as a sharp need, but as a slow, cold certainty. It was not enough. You're back in your prison of stillness, but it no longer feels like a strategic choice. It feels like a trap. The gamble you just won has left you too weak to win another. You don't have the reserves to fire your tongue again. You don't have the strength to wait out another week of self-consumption. For the first time, the math of your existence simply doesn't add up. Waiting for the safety of night is a death sentence, but moving in the day is suicide. Then, a change. A deep grey gloom begins to settle over the forest, long before dusk. The air grows heavy. A single drop of water spatters on the leaf above you, then another. Soon, a steady, soaking rain is drumming on your world, and with it comes a new, terrifying and absolutely final option. It is not night. But it is not a death sentence of sunlight either. It is a loophole, a terrifying high-stakes exception to the one rule you have lived by. Driven by a desperation that finally outweighs a lifetime of fear, you do the unthinkable. You crawl out from your hiding place into the middle of the day. The world is a washed-out, overexposed photograph. The light, even filtered through the rain and canopy, feels abrasive and wrong. You are a creature of shadow, and you have just stepped onto an alien stage in the middle of a performance you do not understand. You move not with the cautious slink of a nighttime hunter, but with a frantic, paranoid scramble. Every dripping leaf could be a jay, every dark root the coil of a snake. You are a trespasser in their time, a slow, dark morsel that has stupidly wandered out of the darkness and into the open, a blatant violation of the natural order. This isn't a hunt. This is a desperate, visible flight, and you are banking your entire fragile existence on the hope that the rain is a sufficient shield against a world that is now wide awake and looking right at you. That desperate scramble doesn't take you across the forest, but down into it. Plunging headfirst into the leaf litter, you trade the abrasive open-air terror of the rain for a new, more intimate kind of hell. This is your entire universe now. The top 3 inches of the forest floor, a suffocating, treacherous maze where the walls are made of damp, rotting leaves, and the floor is a minefield of sharp twigs and abrasive soil. You're no longer a creature. You're a navigator of tunnels. You squeeze your soft body through gaps so tight they scrape along your sides. The grit and woody fibres a constant, painful reminder that your skin is also your lung, and every scratch is a wound that steals your breath. The world is a pressure of cold, wet earth against your belly and a ceiling of decaying foliage millimetres from your back. It's profoundly claustrophobic. Sight is useless here. Sound is a muffled, disorienting thrum. You move by touch and by tasting the dark, pushing your snout into the muck, reading the faint chemical whispers of this subterranean world. A promising gap between 2 decaying oak leaves leads not to safety, but to a solid wall of packed, gritty soil, a dead end. You try to back away, a clumsy multi-point turn in a space barely wider than your own body. And that's when you feel it. A vibration that isn't the soft thud of rain. It's a quick, rhythmic, impossibly fast skittering coming down the tunnel toward you. It's the sound of too many legs moving in perfect, horrifying unison. Before you can fully turn, it's there. A river of polished brown chitin and legs flowing around a bend in the tunnel. A centipede, the apex predator of this underworld. Its long antennae twitch, tasting the air you just disturbed. You have blundered into its highway and you have nowhere to go. You're a soft, slow-moving mistake trapped in a dead-end tunnel. And the king of this suffocating maze is flowing directly toward you. There is no room to fight, no space to flee. Your only move is down. As the centipede's venomous claws scrape the tunnel just behind you, you drive your head into the soft, compacted soil beneath the leaf you're on. It's not a tunnel. It's a solid wall of earth. But you're not solid. You're a creature of soft tissue and desperate will. You push, you strain, you force your pliable skull into the dirt, your body squeezing and elongating, contorting through a space that shouldn't exist. The pressure is immense, the earth a coarse, grinding sandpaper against your delicate skin. But you are through. You have burst out of the suffocating underworld of the leaf litter and into a pocket of raw, cold soil just beneath it. Above you, in the abandoned tunnel, you feel the vibration as the river of legs flows past, its hunt continuing on without you. You have escaped. But the frantic energy that got you here is gone, and a new, more profound cold is seeping into your exhausted body. You've made a terrible miscalculation. You judged the coming season by the dampness of the rain, but you ignored the sharp, crystalline bite in the air. The ground is already hardening. Your desperate search for a winter burrow, a hibernaculum, is no longer a search. It's a panicked scramble for anything deep enough. You find an old root channel, a decent pocket a few inches down. It feels safe. It feels deep enough. Exhausted, hollowed out, you curl into a tight, glossy coil. Your metabolism slows. Your heart slows to a faint, intermittent flutter. You don't fall asleep. You simply cease. And that's where you are, weeks later, when the real cold comes. Not a gentle frost, but a deep, brutal Arctic plunge that sends the frost line plunging down through the earth like a descending ceiling. It reaches your burrow. It passes it. You're now in the zone of death. You're too cold to feel the cold, too deep in torpor to even register the panic. But you are aware, a dull, profound awareness as a strange stiffness begins to creep into the tip of your tail. It is not a muscle cramp, it's a change of state. You feel the water in your own cells beginning to obey a different set of physics. The spark of life is being extinguished by microscopic daggers of ice, forming not on your skin, but inside your skin. Puncturing membranes, shredding the delicate machinery of your cells from within. It's a slow, silent, and utterly irreversible catastrophe. Your last, dim sensation is not of being eaten, or of drying out, but of your own substance turning quietly, inexorably to stone. But the state of being stone is not an end. It is simply a pause, an unexpected warm front, a brief treacherous thaw in the heart of winter pushes the frost line back up. And the ice daggers inside your cells do not vanish. They melt. And as they turn back to water, you're left with the catastrophic aftermath. It is not a gentle awakening. It is the sensation of 1 billion microscopic wounds, of shredded tissues and ruptured cell walls. The structure of your body is a cold, wet ruin. You can't control your own limbs. A leg twitches, your head lolls. You're a marionette with its strings cut, lying half frozen in the mud, a spastic, shuddering wreck, incapable of the one thing that could save you: burrowing. You're stuck on the surface, a damaged, malfunctioning piece of life. And that's when you feel the world begin to vibrate with a familiar high-frequency panic. It's the frantic, skittering energy of a creature whose heart beats 10 times a second, whose internal furnace burns so hot it lives its entire life on the razor's edge of starvation. The shrew. It's not hunting, it's scanning, its long nose twitching, reading the air for the one thing it needs more than safety, more than sleep: calories. As it closes in, you realize something profound. To the snake, you are an ambush. To the bird, a curiosity. To the centipede, an obstacle. But to this tiny, warm-blooded hurricane, you are something else entirely. You're not a challenge. You're not an adversary. You're a windfall. A soft, slow, nutrient-dense package of life left carelessly on the forest floor. You're a perfect, boneless, easily processed meal. And to this creature running a constant metabolic deficit, finding you is like finding a purse of gold in a world with no pockets. In this moment, you are not prey. You are a resource. The shrew doesn't hesitate, doesn't calculate. It just falls upon you, its needle-sharp teeth a blur, because it doesn't have time to kill you before it starts to eat. Your final sensation is not the cold, but a buzzing, frantic heat, as your life is violently converted into fuel for its tiny, raging fire. That frantic, buzzing heat as your life is violently converted into fuel for a tiny, raging fire, that is the end if you're easy fuel. But you're not always a mottled shadow. Sometimes you are the living flame, the walking orange warning, your skin saturated with a neurotoxin so potent it can stop a heart. You're a lesson waiting to be taught, and the world has learned to leave you alone. Almost. A shape detaches from the darkness. You smell that familiar, dry, scaly scent. A snake. But this one doesn't pause. It doesn't test the air and recoil. It is a garter snake, a creature whose entire evolutionary history is an arms race against your poison. It has seen your colour before. It has tasted your family's poison for generations, and it has a tolerance. Its jaws don't snap. They clamp. It's not the quick, piercing pain of the shrew's bite. It's a slow, dull, crushing pressure. You wait for the toxin to do its work. You wait for the convulsions, the paralysis, the panicked retreat. Nothing happens. The snake simply begins to chew. You're being gummed, methodically, horribly. Your brilliant, defiant skin is no defense against the slow, grinding pressure that is turning your muscles to pulp. Your poison is coursing into the snake's system, and it can feel it. It's a low-grade misery, a dizzying nausea. But it's not enough. The snake is gambling that it can stomach the poison long enough to benefit from the calories an otherwise helpless meal provides. So it keeps going, mauling you, softening you, trying to power through the agony you are inflicting on its nervous system. And then, finally, it decides the cost is too high. The return on investment isn't worth the creeping paralysis. It opens its jaw and spits you out, a mangled, half-crushed, spit-soaked ruin. You are alive. Technically. The poison worked, but it didn't save you from the mauling. It only convinced your predator to abandon its meal after you'd already been thoroughly, agonizingly destroyed. But that mangled wreck, spat out and left to rot, is a story of your own brutal survival, a life spent fighting for your own skin. There is another path, a quieter, deeper, and in many ways an even more profound form of endurance. Because not all mothers are gone. For a rare few, the most profound act of survival isn't escaping after you lay your eggs. It's staying. Here, you are the mother. The desperate, frantic journey to the pond is over. The genetic legacy is secured. But instead of abandoning your clutch to the fungus and the caddisflies, you take it with you, into a dark, hidden chamber you've dug beneath a stone. There is no nest. There is only your body, a living wall of muscle and skin coiled around a shimmering grape-like cluster of your own future. And so you begin the vigil. You don't leave, you don't hunt, you don't eat. For weeks that stretch into a month, you simply wait in the cold, silent dark. That same faint, white fuzz, the water mole that smothers life, tries to creep in. But you fight it. You methodically turn the eggs, nudging them, coating them with the faint antifungal secretions of your own skin. Tiny, skittering insects, smelling a defenseless meal, probe the edges of the clutch. You gently, deliberately push them away. This isn't a noble, proud guard duty. It's a slow-motion act of self-consumption. As the days pass, the gnawing emptiness in your belly fades into a dull, permanent ache. Your body, with no fuel coming in, begins to liquidate its assets. The fat stored in your tail melts away. Your muscles, painstakingly rebuilt after the migration, begin to thin and soften. You're a battery slowly draining your own life force and pouring it into the silent, gelatinous mass you're cradling. You feel the faint twitching within the eggs. Life is stirring, a new generation getting ready to tear its way into the world. The energy they have was once yours. You're guarding a door you may never see opened, pouring the last of your own substance into a future that might not include you. You are their first meal, their first shelter, their first god, and you are doing it all while you are quietly, methodically, ceasing to exist. But that quiet, fading vigil of the mother is an anomaly, a long, slow sacrifice in a life that is otherwise defined by sudden, violent shocks, a life lived through a pair of eyes that do not see the world so much as they feel it lurch. You don't perceive your surroundings as a collection of objects. There is no log, no leaf, no distant predator. Your eyes are two dark, wet beads that offer you a world of blurry shapes, of indistinct smudges of light and dark. They are functionally useless for detail. You see the forest floor as a vague, shifting watercolour, a soft focus painting where nothing is ever truly clear. These eyes are not for appreciating the texture of bark or for identifying food. They are tripwires. They are biological motion sensors tuned to a single terrifying frequency, the lunge. Your entire visual system is built not to see a threat approaching, but to register the split second it decides to attack. Imagine it. You are still. The world is a calm, blurry collage of browns and greens. A dark lump you've been vaguely aware of for the last hour. A lump you perceived as just another clod of dirt suddenly erupts. In that microsecond, your brain doesn't identify bird or shrew. It just registers motion. Attack. The blur has become a beak. The shadow has become teeth. Your life is a series of jump scares, where the monster is only ever visible the moment it screams in your face. This is why you don't move. It is the fundamental ironclad law of your visible universe. To be still is to be a part of the blurry background. To move is to become the lunge. You are prey living by the rules of a predator's eyesight, a world where the only thing that truly matters is a sudden change in the picture. And so you wait, knowing you will never see danger coming. You will only ever see it arriving in that one heart-stopping, explosive moment when it's already trying to kill you. But not all of life's horrors arrive in that single heart-stopping, explosive moment. Some don't lunge from the shadows. They rise up slowly from within your own body, a familiar dread that periodically comes to claim you. It's a process as old as you are, but no less terrifying for its predictability. It starts as an itch, a deep, maddening, full-body itch that you can't scratch because it feels like it's coming from under your skin. Your own surface is betraying you. It's becoming loose, disconnected, a deadened suit that no longer feels like a part of you. This isn't just an inconvenience. For you, a creature whose skin is its lung, this is a slow, agonizing suffocation. The outer layer, the very membrane that has been pulling life from the damp air, begins to fail. It turns cloudy, milky, and the vital exchange of gases falters. You feel that old, familiar tightness in your non-existent chest, the feeling of drowning on dry land. But this time, it's because your primary organ is peeling itself away from your body in ragged, sticky sheets. There is no elegant slide, no single satisfying piece like a snake. You have to tear this dead thing off. You become frantic, clumsy. You rub your body raw against the sharp edge of a stone, the abrasive bark of a root, anything that will catch a loose flap of your own dying lung and help you rip it free. It's an undignified, desperate struggle. A patch over your eye peels away, momentarily blinding you with a flap of your old self. A piece gets stuck on your leg, trailing behind you like a ghostly remnant. All while you're contorting and scraping, you're distracted, vulnerable, and barely able to breathe, praying that the vibrations of your struggle don't attract the one thing you can't deal with right now. And when the last piece finally comes off, you're left raw, renewed, and exquisitely sensitive. The world feels sharp again on your fresh new skin. But you don't rest. Exhausted and starving from the ordeal, you turn and you do one last necessary thing. You eat the skin you just shed. You must reclaim every single calorie, every protein you spent creating, and then tearing off the lung you just wore. You consume your own ghost just to have enough energy to survive the day. That meal of your own ghost is just enough. It's a desperate infusion of energy that allows you to survive today, and maybe tomorrow. But the daily cycle of survival, the small-scale accounting of hide and hunt, is just a placeholder. You're waiting for a larger command, for a memo sent from the deep past. And when the first warm, heavy rain of spring finally comes, it arrives like a neurological coup. The cautious, solitary creature you've spent a year being is overthrown. A new, ancient directive takes the helm, and it has only one order: go home. The destination isn't a place you remember with fondness. It's a set of celestial coordinates burned into your DNA, a magnetic pull toward the exact spot on the planet where you were born. And so you crawl, a pilgrim on a holy journey, pulled by a faith so blind it can't conceive of failure. You cross the same hellscapes as before, the open fields, the rivers of hot black stone, but this time the world around you is even more wrong. The forest that once offered cover is now a graveyard of stumps, a jagged ruin that offers no shadow, no leaf litter, no safety. Still, you push on, because the signal in your blood is stronger than the evidence of your senses. Then you smell it, or rather, you smell the ghost of it. The faint, phantom tang of pond water, buried under the new, raw scent of sawdust and exposed earth. You have arrived, but home is gone. The vernal pool, your cradle, your ancestral spawning ground is now a sun-baked, cratered pit, choked with splintered wood and the rusting guts of a forgotten machine. There is no water, there is no life, there is only a cracked, barren depression in the earth. But your instinct doesn't have a protocol for this. It doesn't understand erasure. The command was to arrive, and you have arrived. And so you obey the next command. You crawl stupidly around the edge of the pit, your skin, your lung, beginning to dry in the open air. You join the other lost souls, the other pilgrims who have answered the same phantom call, all of you circling a grave, waiting for a memory to become real. The instinct that has ensured your species' survival for 100 million years has just become a perfect, elegant machine for your own extinction, a fatal loyalty to a place that exists only in your blood. The instinct to breed doesn't stop just because the world it calls for is gone. It screams in your blood, a frantic biological command with nowhere to go. And so you circle the lip of the barren pit with the others, a confused, silent procession of lost pilgrims. The ancient directive shudders, short-circuits, and in its place, a different, colder kind of accounting begins. You are here, you survived, but you were never supposed to. You were one of over 1,000, a single gelatinous possibility in a shimmering constellation of life. And in the cold, brutal math of your existence, the expected outcome for every single one of you was death. You don't remember it in pictures, but you feel it as a physical truth. You feel the ghost of the siblings who were smothered by a creeping white mold before they could even hatch. You feel the phantom pressure of the newt's jaw that swallowed a dozen of your brothers in a single, careless gulp. When you tore your way out into the cold water, you were suddenly surrounded by hundreds of competitors, and the hunger was a madness. You remember the frantic snap, the brief, silent struggle, and the taste of something that was almost, but not quite, you. The first substantial meal you ever ate was your own kin. You remember the pond shrinking, leaving hundreds of your siblings to gasp and then bake into the cracking mud. You remember the helpless paralysis of metamorphosis, and you know, with a certainty that runs deeper than thought, that most of you were found and eaten in that vulnerable state. You are not the hero of this story. You are a statistical impossibility, a rounding error in an equation where the solution is almost always zero. You survived not because you were the strongest or the smartest or the fastest. You survived because the dragonfly nymph turned left instead of right, because the shrew was distracted by a beetle, because the garter snake's belly was already full, and now you look at the others circling this grave with you, the last few rounding errors of a generation that has been systematically erased. All that luck, all that brutal cost has led you here, to the end of the calculation. The cruelest part of the math isn't that most of you are meant to die. It's that you were one of the ones who lived, only to discover it didn't matter. The cold math of your existence doesn't offer any comfort as you sit paralysed on the edge of this barren grave. Your eyes, those two useless beads of black jelly, register the harsh, open sky, but they offer no strategy, no solution. You are never a creature of sight. You feel it. The ground beneath your soft belly is a drumhead, and every event on the forest floor is a beat, a rhythm, a story told in tremors that you read with your bones. Vibrations travel up through the damp earth, through your jaw, and directly into your skull. This is your primary sense of the world, a constant, chaotic stream of physical information you must decipher moment by moment. You have spent your entire life learning the difference between the soft, steady patter of rainfall and the heavy, earth-shaking thud of a deer's hoof. You can distinguish the frantic, high-frequency scratch of a foraging shrew from the slow, deliberate grind of a beetle's mandibles. The subtle, almost silent peristalsis of an earthworm moving just inches below the surface is a dinner bell. The low-frequency, side-to-side drag of a snake is a death knell. But here, on this churned, naked earth, the drum is playing a song you don't understand. The familiar muffling of leaf litter is gone. Every tremor is sharp, naked, and alien. You feel the ghost vibration of a worm, a faint pulse of hope deep in the compacted soil. But it is immediately drowned out by something else, a new rhythm, a slow, heavy, intermittent thump, that makes the ground shudder. It's not the four-legged cadence of any animal you know. This is a two-beat rhythm, a heavy, deliberate pressure that speaks of immense weight and unnatural purpose. You can't see what's coming. You can only feel its approach, a slow, methodical drumbeat of doom getting closer and closer, and your entire being locks down, listening to the footsteps of the god that unmade your world. The rhythm gets closer. The ground shudders with each beat. A shadow falls over you, a sudden, eclipsing darkness that blots out the hostile sky. You see it then, not with your useless eyes, but with the full-body terror of a creature who knows the shape of its destroyer. A colossal column of leather and shaped mud descends, planting itself inches from your head with a ground-shaking thump. It is a boot, and above it, a figure so vast it is not an animal, but a piece of the landscape, and it does not see you. It pauses, surveying the ruin of your world, and then it lifts, and the two-beat rhythm continues on, fading into the distance. It never knew you were there. And in that moment of profound, absolute insignificance, a strange, heretical thought could rise. What if this was all a mistake? Not just the pilgrimage, not just the hunt, but the whole project. What if that frantic internal command to leave the water, the one that tore your body apart and recast you for a world of air and gravity, was a bad deal? What if you could refuse? You don't have to. For some of your kind, that signal for metamorphosis never arrives. The ancient clock is broken. You simply keep growing. The pond does not become a tomb you must escape. It becomes your kingdom. Those beautiful, feathery gills that were meant to be an agony to be absorbed, a relic of your youth, instead flourish. They become magnificent blood-red crowns on either side of your head, pulling life from the cool, familiar water forever. You trade the clumsy, alien horror of legs for a life of sleek, powerful motion. You never feel the crushing weight of gravity, the leathery grip of dehydration, the terror of a sun-baked rock. You never have to listen for the footstep of this new, indifferent god. You trade the horrors of the land, the shrew, the snake, the frost, the road, for the familiar horrors of the water. It's not safer, but it's a world whose rules you have always understood. You become a Peter Pan of the pond, a perpetual juvenile, a king in a world you were built for but were supposed to leave behind. You have made the bizarre, beautiful choice to never grow up. But that choice to never grow up isn't yours. It's a path not taken, a fantasy of an alternate life lived in the deep, cool water. Your reality is the boot print in the mud, the ghost of a home that is gone, and the mangled ruin of your own body. The garter snake from your last encounter is long gone, but its work remains. The crushing, grinding pressure of its jaws didn't just maul you, it obliterated your front leg, leaving behind a dangling, useless string of shattered bone wrapped in dead tissue. You drag it for days, a heavy, blackening anchor that snags on every twig and throws your entire world off kilter. The slow, 4-beat rhythm of your crawl is replaced by a pathetic 3-beat lurch. You're a tripod where a quadruped should be, constantly tipping, scraping your belly on the grit, wasting precious energy just to stay upright. But the dead limb is more than an inconvenience. It's a dinner bell for bacteria, a necrotic beacon screaming out an invitation for infection. And so, your body makes a cold, executive decision. It cannot afford the liability. The ancient programming that shed your tail years ago re-engages, but this is a far more expensive project. At the raw, mangled stump, the miracle begins a second time. A pale, glistening bud of unformed cells pushes its way into existence, the promise of a leg that is not yet real. This isn't a miracle, it's metabolic bankruptcy. Every single spark of energy in your body is rerouted to this one, desperate construction site at your shoulder. The gnawing hunger in your belly is silenced, not with food, but by decree. Your other muscles begin to soften as they are cannibalized for raw materials. Digestion halts. You are too weak to hunt, too off balance to flee. This slow, painstaking process of knitting together new bone, new muscle, and new nerves from nothing will take months. And for all those months you can do nothing but hide in the damp dark, a crippled, starving prisoner of your own regeneration, pouring the last of your essence into becoming whole, praying you don't starve to death before the job is done. This grim accounting, this slow burn of your own substance to pay for a future limb feels unique, a singular, personal hell. But it isn't. It's just a quiet, slow-motion echo of the frantic gamble that started your entire existence. A gamble made on behalf of your entire generation, played out in a place of temporary magic and profound violence, the vernal pool. It's a world that shouldn't exist. For a few fleeting weeks, the meltwater of winter and the rains of spring conspire to create a shallow, ephemeral lake in the middle of the forest. It has no inlet, no outlet. It is a secret, contained universe, a gift from the sky, and because it will be gone by summer, it is blessedly free of the one great predator of the water, fish. But that absence doesn't create a sanctuary. It creates a vacuum that nature fills with a frantic, explosive concentration of life, so dense it borders on madness. The pool becomes an arena where every creature that can crawl or fly to it arrives for a brutal all-or-nothing feast. Diving beetles, dragonfly nymphs, and hundreds of your own kind, an entire generation, are all dumped into this temporary bowl, a crowded, frenzied death trap where the only rule is to eat before you are eaten. It is a world on a timer. The water that gives life is also a ticking clock evaporating day by day. This isn't a gentle race. It is a shrieking, chaotic scramble for resources, an arms race where the only prize for second place is to become fuel for the winner. Every horror you have since endured on land, the shrew, the snake, the crushing indifference of the machine, is a luxury, a privilege, a prize you earned by surviving that first, frenzied bloodbath in a world that was designed to kill you before you could even learn its rules. But the prize you earned in that frenzied bloodbath is not a peace treaty. It's a ticket to a different kind of war, one fought not with a furious cannibalistic lunge, but with the silent, invisible poison of information. This is the cold war of the forest floor, and your entire kingdom is the damp, dark space beneath this one specific log. It's not a grand territory, it's a few square feet of cool earth, but it's your grocery store, your bomb shelter, and your life support system all rolled into one irreplaceable patch of dirt. And so you fight for it, not with teeth, but with chemistry. You become a cartographer of your own existence, mapping the borders of your tiny nation with the only ink you possess, your own body. You deposit tiny, deliberate fecal pellets at the main entrances to your refuge. Each one is a signpost, a territorial marker that screams mine in a language of scent that other salamanders can read from yards away. You press your chin to the ground, smearing your own unique musk onto the soil, a chemical signature that broadcasts your presence, your status, your claim. And then, one night, an intruder arrives. Another of your kind, a refugee from its own lost territory, approaches your log. The battle begins. It doesn't rush you, it stops, lowers its head to the ground, and reads the story you've written there. It assesses your chemical signature. Is it strong and fresh, speaking of a well-fed, vigorous occupant? Or is it faint, old, the signature of a creature on the verge of starvation, a king whose throne is ripe for the taking? This is a war of bluff and intimidation. Even when you are weak, hollowed out from a failed hunt, you must invest the last of your energy into leaving a bold, fresh mark, a chemical lie that says, "I am formidable, turn back." The intruder hesitates. It reads your defiant signature. It weighs the cost of a confrontation, and it backs away, melting into the darkness to find an easier claim. You have won. There is no roar of victory. There is only the profound, lonely relief of having successfully defended your right to exist for one more night. But that profound, lonely relief is a luxury you can't afford for long, because you've just won a war for a kingdom that is actively trying to flay you alive. Your world is not a soft, damp blanket. It is an architecture of 1,000 tiny blades. It's sandpaper. The very act of moving through your hard-won territory is a constant, terrifying negotiation. As you squeeze your soft body under the rough, splintered bark of your log, a sharp edge catches your flank. It's not a dramatic gash. It's a tiny, insignificant scrape. But for you, it is a catastrophic breach. That stinging line of raw, exposed tissue isn't just a cut. It's a puncture wound in your only lung. The surface of your skin, that miraculous organ that pulls life from the humid air, is now compromised. That one small patch is no longer breathing for you. It's a dead zone, and worse, it's an open door. The damp, bacteria-rich mud you press yourself into for survival is now a direct threat, a potential flood of infection straight into your bloodstream. Every movement is a gamble. Every crawl through the gritty soil, every push through the sharp, skeletal remains of last year's leaves is a threat of abrasion. You live in a state of constant, low-grade physical dread, knowing that a single clumsy slide, a moment of haste, could result in a wound that slowly, quietly suffocates you or poisons you from the inside out. Your home is not a sanctuary. It is a minefield of tiny daggers, and your own skin is the fragile map you must use to navigate it without bleeding your life into the dirt. And after a day spent surviving these tiny daggers, a day of holding perfectly still to avoid turning your own home into an abattoir, you wait for your reward. You wait for the one thing that offers a reprieve, the profound, absolute and total darkness of night. It is your shield. It is your cloak of invisibility. It is your permission to finally live. But the darkness you wait for no longer comes. In its place, a strange, sickly, orange-grey twilight begins to bloom along the horizon, a false and perpetual dawn that bleeds into the sky and stains the clouds. It never rises. It never sets. It just hangs there, an unnatural smear of light that erases the safety of true blackness. Your ancient internal clock, the one that has ticked reliably for millions of years on a simple binary of light and dark, begins to stutter. That clear, crisp signal to emerge is now a murky, confusing hum. Is it safe? Is it still too bright? The night no longer arrives as a definitive event, but as a slow, ambiguous transition into a lesser version of the day. Your entire body is a coiled spring of hesitation. This permanent twilight is a curse. It extends the day for the hunters who see. The owl on the branch, the raccoon on the prowl, their world, which should have shrunk to what they can hear and smell, is now a faintly illuminated stage. Your perfect mottled camouflage, designed for the deep, complex shadows of a moonlit forest, is rendered useless against the flat, shadowless glow. You are just a dark, slow-moving shape on a washed-out background. The night, your one great advantage, has been stolen from you and given to your enemies. It is a terrifying new kind of nakedness, an exposure that happens in the one place you were always meant to be hidden. That terrifying new kind of nakedness, an exposure that happens in the one place you were always meant to be hidden. But what if you could opt out? What if you could find a sanctuary so deep, so absolute, that the false dawn of the surface world could never reach you? What if you could trade all the chaos, all the predators, and all the light for a life of perfect, unchanging, eternal night? You can, and you have. You're no longer a mottled creature of the forest floor. You've been born into a different kind of existence, a life in the deep, wet stone of the earth. You are a cave salamander. The world is no longer a cycle of day and night. It is a single, unbroken note of blackness. This isn't the familiar soft dark of a moonless forest teeming with scent and sound. This is a sterile, profound, and absolute void. The only sound is the rhythmic, maddeningly slow drip, drip, of water echoing from a place you cannot see and will never reach. The air is heavy, still, and carries a single, unchanging scent: wet limestone. The cold is not a fleeting threat of the seasons. It is a permanent physical presence that has saturated every cell of your body since the moment you tore your way out of a gelatinous egg. And in this world of absolute black, your eyes have paid the price for their uselessness. They are gone, devolved over 1,000 generations into two pathetic skin-covered bumps that register nothing. You're a pale, pinkish-white ghost, your skin so thin and devoid of pigment that you can almost see the faint outlines of your own internal organs. You're a blind spectre, born into darkness, navigating a world you will never ever see. And your life is a tightrope walk over an abyss, where the only thing scarcer than food is a foothold. You move by tasting the stone, pressing your face to the slick, cold floor, reading the faint, ancient trail of bacteria, hoping for the ghost of a scent from a blind cave shrimp or a single, lost isopod. A meal might not come for months. It might not come for a year, but a misstep can come in an instant. A single, clumsy shuffle of your foot to the left doesn't find more cold stone. It finds nothing. A heart-stopping, dizzying emptiness, and you fall, tumbling through a silent black void, with no way of knowing if the bottom is 3 inches away, or if you will simply fall forever into the dark, silent heart of the world. But that long, silent fall into the cold heart of the world is a special kind of end, reserved for the blind ghosts that haunt the stone. Your end, back here on the surface, is much more likely to be the opposite. It won't be silent. It will be a frantic, high-frequency buzzing, and it won't be cold. It will be a suffocating, panting heat. It starts as a vibration in the dirt, a tremor you feel in your jawbone. It's not the slow, deliberate drag of a snake, or the heavy footfall of a deer. It's a jittery, nervous, impossibly fast skittering, the signature of a creature living its entire life in a state of controlled panic. A shrew. It is a tiny, warm-blooded hurricane, a living furnace wrapped in fur whose heart beats 1,000 times a minute. It is in a constant, desperate war against its own metabolism, and it must eat its own body weight in food every single day, or its internal fire will simply burn out. You freeze. It's the only defense you have. But the shrew isn't just hunting by sight. It's hunting by smell, and by heat, and mostly by a desperate, frantic need for calories. Its long, twitching nose scans the leaf litter, not just looking, but reading. It's not looking for an animal. It's looking for fuel. You're not a creature to be outsmarted. You're a slow-moving protein bar. A convenient, boneless, easily processed packet of life. And to this tiny, raging fire of an animal, you are a windfall. It zips past you, then circles back. The vibrations are everywhere. You feel a wave of warmth wash over you as it gets close, the radiating heat from a body that is always, always burning. You can hear its tiny, frantic sniffs, the sound of its desperate accounting. It's not a stalk. It's an audit. And the moment its nose finds you, the moment it confirms your caloric value, the hunt is over. There is no pounce. There is no kill. There is only a single, violent, all-consuming explosion of motion as its needle-sharp teeth fall upon you, because in its frantic metabolic world, it doesn't have time to kill you before it begins to eat. But to be consumed by that frantic buzzing fire is just one way to burn. It is a quick, violent and intimate end. There is another kind of burning, a slow, indifferent and absolute fire that doesn't come from the belly of a predator, but from the sky itself. It is the sun, and it is a god that demands your slow, total surrender. Summer arrives not as a gentle warmth, but as an oppressive, suffocating weight. The air, once your friend, is now an active thief, relentlessly pulling the water from your body. The damp, cool earth under your log becomes a baked clay slab. The deep, life-giving leaf litter turns to dry, crackling tinder. Your entire kingdom is no longer a sanctuary. It's an oven. And you have only one option. You must bury yourself alive. It's a frantic, desperate race, not away from a predator, but down into the earth, chasing the last retreating hint of moisture. You push past the root layer, past the channels of worms, deeper than you have ever been, until you find a pocket of earth that still holds the memory of water. And there you stop. You curl into a tight black knot, and your body begins its final, most desperate gamble. You exude a thin film of mucus, a pathetic attempt to seal your skin, your lung, against the coming desolation. You don't sleep. You enter a state so close to death it is functionally indistinguishable. Your heart slows to a handful of beats per hour. Your metabolism grinds to a near-total halt. You are a flicker of life entombed in the deep, dark earth, a living mummy in a self-made sarcophagus. And you begin to burn. Slowly, silently, you start to metabolize the precious fat you stored in your tail, the savings account you spent all spring building. This is aestivation. It is a slow, methodical self-consumption, a bet that you have stored enough of your own substance to outlast the fire in the sky. Every day is a gamble. Every week the drought continues, your tail gets a little thinner, the fuel burns a little lower. You are a prisoner in a tomb of your own making, completely cut off from the world, praying for a rain that may never come. And if your reserves burn out before the sky relents, you won't wake up. You will just go out. A silent, forgotten ember, extinguished in the dark. But the rain does come. It's not the gentle spring shower that first called you to life, but a heavy, percussive autumn downpour that seeps through the baked earth and breaks the seal on your tomb. You awaken not to relief, but to a cold, hollowed-out exhaustion, and a new, non-negotiable command that overrides the gnawing ache in your belly. The annual cycle has turned, and the very instinct that compels you to breed is firing once again. You make the pilgrimage on legs still weak from your long self-consumption, drawn back to the same chaotic underwater ballroom where you began. But this year, you see the frantic ballet not as a newcomer, but as a desperate participant in a silent, high-stakes negotiation. A male approaches. He doesn't just circle. He presses his chin against your snout, smearing you with a complex chemical resume, a pheromonal broadcast of his fitness. He moves in front of you, fanning his tail, not in a display of beauty, but to waft those potent information molecules directly into your face, where your nasolabial grooves can read his entire life story. This is not a dance. It's a chemical interrogation. He's asking 1,000 questions with his body, and you're answering with a stillness that is its own language. Your slightest hesitation, a turn of the head that he reads as rejection, and he will abandon the effort instantly, vanishing into the murk. But you follow. He leads you away from the chaos, and then, with a delicate dip of his body, he deposits his entire genetic future on a sunken leaf, a single, shimmering pyramid of jelly, a spermatophore. He is gone. His part is done. But just as you begin the impossibly precise maneuver to take this genetic gift into your own body, a rival male, a blur of desperate motion, slams into you from the side. He's not trying to court you, he's trying to disrupt the success of another. The impact sends you tumbling, a clumsy, disoriented spin in the cold water. By the time you right yourself, the moment is gone. The tiny pyramid, The culmination of your entire year's survival, of his journey, of this whole complex, silent conversation is still there. But the delicate spell is broken. The window has closed. You have survived everything the world could throw at you, only to have the entire purpose of that survival undone in a single careless jostle. There is no second chance. The annual effort is wasted, and all you can do is turn around and begin the long, lonely walk back to a winter of waiting. That long, lonely walk back is a journey of pure metabolic dread. Your tank is empty, the purpose of your pilgrimage undone, and all you have is the hollow ache of wasted effort. But as you drag your body back toward a winter of waiting, you feel something else. It's not the sharp sting of a wound or the familiar panic of dehydration. It's a deeper, more intimate kind of wrongness, a leaden slowness in your limbs, an exhaustion that feels older and heavier than just your journey. Because you didn't leave the vernal pool empty-handed. That chaotic, communal water, swarming with the desperate life of your own kind, was a festival of contamination. You didn't just absorb the scent of home, you drank in its diseases. And now you're not walking alone, you're a host. You're a walking ecosystem for a silent, unseen army you picked up in the very place you sought to create life. Deep in your gut, in the linings of your organs, maybe even coiled in your muscle tissue, are the passengers. Microscopic flukes, nematode worms, a squirming hidden nation that has declared your body its territory. They are not a violent plague that kills you quickly. They are far more insidious. They are quiet tenants who do nothing but eat at your table. Every precious calorie you manage to swallow is taxed before it ever reaches your cells. The nourishment from that worm, the fuel from that beetle, it's siphoned off by countless tiny mouths you will never see. You are eating for an army, but you are the only one who has to do the hunting. The weakness you feel isn't just from a lack of food, it's from being actively, constantly and silently robbed from the inside. You are a haunted house, a walking ghost, hollowed out and drained long before you are officially dead, and all you can do is carry your invisible thieves with you into the dark. And so you carry your invisible thieves with you, back to the one place you have left, back to your log. It is more than a shelter now. It is your hospital ward, your fortress of solitude. Here, coiled in the familiar cool damp, you can finally anchor yourself against the silent internal drain. You can afford to be weak. You can afford to be still. The complex chemical signature you've smeared over this small patch of earth is your only declaration to the world. I am here. Do not disturb. But the world does not read your declarations, and it does not care that you are tired. It starts as a deep rolling disturbance in the ground, a vibration that feels less like a footstep and more like the earth itself is shifting on its axis. It's not the frantic skitter of a shrew or the heavy two-beat rhythm of a human. It's the feeling of a nearby mountain rearranging itself. A vast, dark shape blots out the filtered light. A bear, and it's not hunting you, it's hunting your home. There's a deep, wet sniff, followed by the horrifying sound of claws, each one the size of your entire body, digging into the soft, rotting wood. The ground shudders, and then, with a single grunt of effort and the deafening crack of splintering wood and tearing roots, your entire universe is ripped away. Light doesn't just arrive, it detonates. You're tumbling, flung through the air, and then you land with a wet slap on the raw, naked soil. Your log, your ceiling, your walls, your entire world of predictable darkness is gone. You lie exposed, a tiny, dark, glistening nerve ending on a churned-up patch of dirt under the vast open sky. And the air, that great dry thief, falls upon you. Your skin, your lung, is screaming. It's not just the familiar terror of drying out. It's the swift, panicked suffocation as the open air begins to seal your only breathing surface shut. You scramble, a pathetic, clumsy lurch on legs that feel like they're made of wet paper. You have to find cover. You have to find damp. But there is nothing. Just a desert of ruin where your kingdom used to be. And the mountain that moved is still here. A vast black wall of fur and sniffing purpose. Its huge head turns, a wet, black, indifferent eye registers the frantic, glistening twitch in the dirt. Your twitch. That indifferent eye pins you to the dirt, and in a brain that only has two real commands, freeze or flee, the freeze option has just been violently vetoed by a house-sized predator that already knows you're there. The only option left is to run. But you don't run. You can't. Your body is a masterpiece of slow-motion stealth and a complete catastrophic failure at speed. Your legs, splayed out at right angles from your torso, are designed for low-gravity crawling under logs, not for efficient forward motion. So when your brain screams sprint, what your body produces is a clumsy, sprawling wobble, a pathetic side-to-side lurch. Each step is an engineering contradiction, a movement so inefficient that your entire body has to bend in on itself just to move a leg forward. The energy you expend in this desperate one-foot scramble across the open dirt is astronomically high. It costs you more to run 5 inches than it would cost that bear to cross the entire clearing. You are burning through the last of your precious parasite-thinned reserves in a display of motion that is, to the vast indifferent universe, barely distinguishable from being still. The bear's massive head lowers, its wet nose sniffing the air. It watches your agonizingly slow scramble, this pathetic explosion of wasted effort. It doesn't see a creature escaping. It sees a twitching curiosity, a glistening, uninteresting speck of life flailing in the dirt. You're giving everything you have to this escape, and the predator you're escaping from doesn't even register it as an attempt. It's an interesting vibration, nothing more. It nudges you with its nose, a wet, snuffing shove that sends you tumbling. A world-ending event for you, an act of casual curiosity for it. Then, bored, the great head lifts and the mountain moves on, searching for the grubs it was really after. You are left, bruised and exposed, with the cold, hard, biological certainty that you will never be fast enough. Your body is built on the assumption that you will never be seen. Because the moment you are, your ability to move is not a tool for survival. It's just the last, most expensive way to die. And so you lie there, bruised, exposed, and left with the chilling certainty that you only survived because you weren't worth the effort. That is the theme of your entire brutal existence. You survived the caddisfly in the egg because it was drawn to your brother. You survived the snake in the dark because you were so still you became scenery. You survived the bear because you were an uninteresting twitch in the dirt. You were never the hero of your own story. You were the rounding error, the background character that made it to the final scene through an impossible series of near misses and lucky accidents. You have endured a life that is a constant screaming paradox. You wear your only lung on the outside of your body, a miraculous membrane that is both a lifeline and a fatal flaw, constantly threatening to suffocate you or bleed you dry. You hunt with a biological cannon you can only afford to fire once, a weapon so costly it's a form of financial suicide. You are a master of regeneration, capable of pulling a new leg or a new future from the brink of ruin, but only by cannibalizing your own substance in a slow, starving retreat from the world. You are a miracle of adaptation, and every single one of those miracles is a thinly veiled curse. You have navigated a world that is not just hostile, but fundamentally alien to your design. You crawled from the murderous temporary heaven of the vernal pool onto a forest floor made of sandpaper and daggers. You learned to fear the sun as a malevolent god, to read the stories of your world in molecules on the wind, and to fear the footsteps of the new indifferent titans that unwrite your home with steel jaws and pave it over with black stone. Your life was never a battle against predators. It was a constant losing negotiation with physics, with chemistry, and with a world that is changing faster than your ancient blood can comprehend. And yet, after all of it, the droughts and the floods, the poisons and the parasites, the freezing and the burning, you are still here, a quiet, stubborn ember of life that refuses to go out. The next time you see one of your kind, a glistening black nerve ending tucked under a wet log, don't see a simple shy creature. See a survivor of 1,000 apocalypses, big and small. See an ancient engine built for a world that no longer exists, but that somehow, impossibly, keeps running. You're a testament not to strength, or speed, or intelligence, but to the most profound and overlooked survival strategy of all, a quiet, desperate, a magnificent will to simply endure. You might not last a day, but this creature has lasted for millions of years, and beneath our feet, in the damp and the dark, its silent, epic struggle continues. But that epic struggle, that quiet, desperate will to endure is now being fought on a battlefield that has been invisibly poisoned. This isn't the honest violence of a predator's lunge or the clear-cutting apocalypse of a machine. This is a ghost. A fine, chemical dust clinging to the leaves, a greasy, iridescent film on the surface of a puddle. It is the residue of a war fought in a farmer's field miles away, and it has no smell, no taste, no substance you can see. And your skin, your lung, your all-purpose sponge for existence cannot tell the difference. It drinks it in. But this poison doesn't burn like acid or suffocate you like a fungus. It works on a deeper, more insidious level. It gets into your wiring. It seeps into your nervous system and begins to introduce static into the clean, ancient signals that travel between your brain and your body. The instinct is still there. The command from your brain to freeze still arrives when a shadow passes overhead, but the execution is corrupted. A single muscle in your back fires when it shouldn't. A faint, uncontrollable tremor shivers through your leg. The perfect, explosive launch of your tongue, your one-shot biological cannon, now has a half-second of lag. The beetle is gone before the command to fire has even finished its corrupted journey. You feel clumsy, disconnected, a pilot in a machine that is no longer responding with perfect obedience. Then you feel a familiar vibration in the dirt. You smell that dry, scaly, terrifying scent. A snake. You do what you have done 1,000 times. You become a stone, but you are a broken stone. A stone that twitches. That tiny, poison-induced spasm is all it takes. The snake's cold black eye, which would have slid right past the motionless piece of scenery you used to be, now snaps to the flicker of movement. You have just broadcast your exact location. You have just announced your presence to a creature that hunts by stillness and shadow. The poison didn't kill you. It just made you loud in a world where your only hope for survival was to be perfectly, absolutely silent. And so it ends. Not with a roar, or the crushing jaws of a bear, or even the suffocating grip of a winter freeze. It ends with a twitch, a single, poisoned, involuntary tremor that told the snake exactly where you were. Your perfect stillness, the one defense you spent a lifetime perfecting, was betrayed by a ghost in your own nervous system, a poison you absorbed from a world that has become fundamentally toxic to silence. As you close your eyes, what do you see? Not a life flashing before you in pictures. You are never a creature of sight. You feel your life again as a library of tremors and tastes. You feel the cold, gelatinous pressure of the egg. You feel the frantic, cannibalistic lunge in the vernal pool that bought you the right to crawl onto land. You feel the agonizing internal fire of metamorphosis, your body declaring war on itself. You feel the electric relief of pressing your belly to cool, damp earth after your first terrifying exposure to the air, an act of salvation you would repeat 1,000 times. You taste the greasy trail of a slug, the bitter musk of a rival, the sharp, defiant tang of your own poison. A life story not written in light, but in molecules. You lived in a world of impossible contradictions. Your skin was your only lung, a miraculous organ that threatened to either dry you out or drown you in mud. Your tongue was a biological cannon, a weapon so costly it was an act of metabolic suicide every time you fired it. You could regrow your own limbs from nothing, but only by slowly, silently, eating yourself alive to pay for the miracle. Every single one of your incredible adaptations was a desperate negotiation, a double-edged sword that could save you one moment and kill you the next. We walk through the forest and see a landscape. You navigated a minefield. That log was your fortress. That puddle was a temporary universe. That road was a river of death. We look at the sky and see clouds. You felt it as a malevolent god of heat and dryness, an entity to be feared and hidden from. You survived not by strength, but by a quiet, stubborn, magnificent endurance. You were a rounding error in an equation that always resolves to zero, a statistical impossibility that made it to the end credits through sheer, unyielding persistence. So the next time we find ourselves in the woods and we lift a wet, rotting log, we shouldn't just see a small, shy creature. We should see the survivor, a quiet testament to 100 million years of silent, epic struggle. An ancient engine built for a world that no longer exists, but that somehow, against all odds, keeps running in the damp and the dark right under our feet. We wouldn't last a day. but it has lasted an eon, and that in itself is a kind of victory.